Hello guys, so this will be my first YouTube video for this channel. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but haven't been, I guess I haven't been able to figure out how to describe this experience that I had. I want to start by saying I do not condone the use of drugs or legal or illegal substances, but a few years back, probably about, it was summer of 2014 or 2015, one or the other, and I had come across some psilocybin mushrooms from my brother-in-law and someone that he was given some mushrooms by, and I know they were Cubensis. I have no idea what strain they were, but these bags were about like a quarter full of the like sandwich Ziploc bags, and he said it was about an eighth. I think it was more like 4 to almost 5 grams. We never weighed them, so I'm not exactly sure. It could have been an eighth. It could have just been very potent mushrooms, but I remember wanting to just take a couple at first just to try it out, see how I would react to it, but he had convinced me by reminding me that I had taken acid in the past, and you can't really compare LSD to psilocybin in the same spectrum because they are similar but not the same. So in low doses, psilocybin can produce like LSD-like effects. LSD in high doses can produce some psilocybin-like experiences, I guess. But it's about the ego death and the dissolution of the boundaries of what we see as reality and what we perceive everything. And the higher the dose, the more crazy it gets, it seems, and it's harder to explain the higher realms of these dimensions. And when I took these mushrooms, I ate the whole bag. Let's just say it was probably about an eighth to 4 grams. So I felt the effects within about 10 minutes. And I'm not sure if it's just because I have a fast metabolism or if I didn't eat much that day or what was going on. But it hit me like a nuclear bomb, basically. And I was not educated enough about the experience before I indulged in it. And that's one thing that I regret, but I don't regret at the same time, because I could have been scared away from trying it if I knew what was going to happen. And within about, I don't know if I just lost time completely or if everything just seemed to speed up simultaneously, but everything dissolved. And it almost seemed immediate for me. And from my perception, I literally thought I was dead. And it literally just seemed that I was just some entity of matter or star matter or something similar to that was observing this universe of all the matter. And it was sort of like a mandala kind of experience, but it's really hard to explain what I saw because I thought I was dead, and my own thoughts about the situation was I was at complete peace, and I understood that I was dead, but I thought that I wouldn't come back into a human being or any reality, like I was here for eternity. But what was observed from the other side, on the physical side, from my brother-in-law and my sister and my parents, it was a complete different story. It started out by me screaming that we're trapped in a box, basically. And I was running around sporadically, just, I guess the way that they described it, it was almost like a demon had taken over my body. The moment that they realized they couldn't control the situation, they dropped me off on my dad, who was next door, and he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know what I was on. He didn't know why I was acting this way. He just, it really was a drag for him just because of that aspect, that no one really was prepared for what was going to happen, and somebody should have been there that could handle the situation. But another thing is, I don't remember doing any of these things, and apparently I was outside, and there was a fire that was previously burning, so there was like embers and coals on the floor, and I had just apparently just got down on the floor and started eating this charcoal, basically, and coals, and it's something I wouldn't normally do. And it's hard to understand some of the things that happen under these experiences, I guess, these transcendent experiences. But something in me was afraid to let go of my body and my life, and accepting the fact that I was dead helped me move on from the fear of death, and not grasping on to this reality that we hold so dearly, and just being happy with the things that we have and everything that we can experience on a daily basis. And it's almost, it's very spiritual. It's not, it's not almost spiritual, it is spiritual. This is something that transcends your conscious, which is a scientific translation of what the soul basically is. It's a energy in another dimension that we can tap into. And how nature can supply this kind of thing is very extravagant and beautiful, really. It's nature's art, it's creativity, and it's all godly in nature, because God is creation, and nature, and the whole trinity of the connection of energy and flow and people need to learn how to learn from the negative experiences and implement that into their life so they can make a positive change. Because we all are going through a major change, whether we can see it or not. And if you can see it, it's even better, because you are enlightened by the experience of this movement. And when I accepted the fact I was dead, this was in my conscious. I had been pulled out of the experience because an ambulance had been called to pick me up because I was out of control at this point. Nobody could keep me contained, basically. They were able to sedate me and get me in the ambulance, take me to the hospital. And I'm not exactly sure the procedures that they did to bring me out of it, but I'm sure they had some counteractive drugs that counteracted the psilocybin and brought me out of it immediately. And from my experience, I thought that I was being born because I was in a hospital. And I saw my mom, my whole family was there, basically everyone that was experiencing this. It was something that kind of brought concern upon the family, but it brought everyone together in a way. And from my perception, I was being born again, but born into the same family. But the thing is, I started remembering who these people were immediately. After seeing them within seconds, I was remembering experiences with them, who they were, all these things. So I knew that, oh, I'm being brought out of the trip that I just previously had. And it's a very weird thing because, it's similar to like when you're in a very deep sleep, someone wakes you up immediately, you're disorientated and you don't know what's going on. It's just like that. And the more we tap into this, we realize that this is very moving, and if you use it with positive intentions, which was my downfall, I had no education on this at all. And my perception of energy, God, everything that I see was forever changed, and it'll never be the same. So, man, I'm very grateful for that experience coming into my life the time that it did, because it showed me a lot of mistakes that I make all the time, which is having negative intentions and allowing fear and anger to control my life and my decisions that I make. I've been waiting a long time to make a video like this, and not being able to step out and do it because of fear. That's allowing the fear to manipulate my decisions that I make. And we all have beliefs, and we all have our own perception of life, and creativity flows through everyone in different ways. So if we use this to a positive intention, we evolve in a positive way. And it shouldn't be about war and chaos and destruction and fear. the fear of the end of the world or some natural disaster or anything like that. We should just live every day with a positive intention, even if it was our last day living. And this is what would bring us to that Christ-like conscious, to where we have no fear of even the worst case scenario. And we can all come together and not care about race or beliefs or different cultures or anything like that, and just be one and realize that we're all human. We all have different traits and different beliefs, but it's all a part of the ego, and we separate ourselves as a whole. Sorry, my throat's a little raspy at the moment, but we separate ourselves as a whole, which makes us unholy, which is feeding the ego. When we dissolve the ego and we transcend into a holy place, we connect with each other, with nature, with the tone of love and life. And we realize that we can choose the frequencies that we operate at. We can live in a very low frequency and have very negative experiences throughout life, or we can transcend that, live in a very high frequency with a Christ-like conscious, not fall for lust and things that feed the ego, but use everything for connection and bringing people together and having a experience that will forever cling to the spirit, because that is what's going to live on into eternity. We do not need to feed our flesh with desirable, lustful things that will in the end hurt us and hold us back from making huge changes and movements within ourselves and even outside of ourselves. It's a very wonderful thing being able to experience life, and depression is a huge epidemic in reality. And if you've ever heard of like Wim Hof, who basically pushed himself to the limit to overpass this barrier that was holding him back from breaking all these world records that would, in the end, with the intention to defeat fear, depression, and all of these things that kill us. And to overcome that barrier and to swim under the ice and to run marathons in the snow and literally just push himself to the limit and overcome these barriers. There's many ways to do this, and he's developed this breathing technique that increases the oxygen flow throughout your entire body and allows you to control your body temperature better, basically. So we realize that we have control of the energy within us. We have to realize that, and we have to bypass things that hold us back from tapping into this energy. So I just want to end with, be careful with your intentions and be very mindful, just like Terrence McKenna makes very, an important fact note that set and setting is very important in the entire experience. And even just having someone there that's going to either set you off or make you indulged in them, or if they get scared by a reaction that you have, it causes more of that fearful energy to flow throughout the room and cause more of a negative experience. So you have to be very careful with the dosage, the set and setting, and everything when you're trying to, I guess, play with this kind of thing. And it's not really playing, it's just experiencing. It's something that is real, just as real as, the imagination is real, but people use it to express things that are real, that they can see, to create metaphors and analogies that people can translate and create poetry and art forms of expression, basically. These things come together in the end and create creativity, and the imagination is real. If you are not completely loosely wired and can't perceive reality on a spectrum of what is real and what is not real, and what is positive and what is negative, if your ideas of what is right and wrong are loose, you're not going to really have a tight grip on control through these kinds of things. So you have to be careful with that. There's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind when trying to experience these types of things. And I used to have many seizures, epileptic grand mal seizures, and it got bad at one point. This was before the mushrooms, and basically it got so bad at one point I was having about 3 seizures in a day. And after a while, I had went on this ayahuasca ceremony. Went to an ayahuasca ceremony. And the thing was, on the way there, my mom was driving me there because I can't drive because I'm diagnosed with grand mal seizures, but I have gained control over time of these seizures. But on the way there, I had a huge emotional breakdown from fear because of what happened with the mushrooms. And I was so scared that I wanted my mom to turn around. And we were almost there. We had driven a couple hours, and I wanted her to turn around and take me home. I was afraid. I was crying. I was anxious. All of these things were brought to the surface. And this made me realize over time, not immediately, because these things take time for you to break down to yourself and to admit to yourself the real message that was being portrayed throughout the experience. And over time, I realized this expression of these negative, anxiety-filled forms of energy were only brought to the surface to make me realize these are the problems that I have on a daily basis. And if I can control these problems, of anxiety, fear, and allowing these things to manipulate and destroy my potential, then I am holding myself back, because I am allowing that to hold me back. So I had taken many medications for seizures for about 2 years. It was from 2014 to like 2016 when I was taking medication, and I was in a very negative place. I was drinking a lot, and I know that the alcohol and the negativity implemented a strong relationship with those seizures. I'd stopped taking care of myself completely for a while because I didn't care. I was depressed. I allowed that depression to manipulate my emotions and affect myself and my family members. I have allowed anger and depression and anxiety, fear, all these things to hold me back. So, what I need to do in the long run is hurdle over these obstacles and get over the fear, the manipulation of this negativity, and find myself as a person that enjoys the life that I have and loves life and loves myself and loves everyone around me, because that is the way of life, and to continue life and not to destroy it. So this ayahuasca experience was amazing, but when I showed up, my mom was not going to take me back. She reminded me that all these things are just trying to hold me back, and I thank my mom for helping me understand a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand about energy, life, death, spirituality, everything. I know that my mom has put a lot of time and effort into really thinking about these things and really breaking down the code, basically. And she has taught me a lot of things, and we have both learned a lot through a lot of experiences through life. And I am thankful to have my mother in my life during the time of my seizures, because this saved my life, for one. And her dealing with my alcoholism and my anger and frustration, and I graduated high school and everything, but I allowed these things and these addictions to hold me back for a long time. So I'm trying to change that, and I'm changing it just by realizing how it really is, and how life is really amazing. But anyway, when I showed up to the ayahuasca ceremony, I was greeted with just complete open arms, and I felt at home, very peaceful. And I realized at that moment that there was nothing that I should have been afraid of. That I have to develop the courage. And it's just like working out a muscle. Over time, your courage can really be so strong from all the wear and tear that you can just dive right in, and you can take these leaps of faith that you finally broke through, and you can have these new experiences in life. You can be more successful because you have learned something and you have overcome this extraordinary experience that is hard to describe, very hard to describe. That's why Terence McKenna is a genius, and he describes these things in his own way. And that's why I love him so much, because he is a very creative person. He's an artist with this kind of, with literature and his way of communication. So, anyway, I want to end with the fact that I have learned a lot from these two substances, I guess you could call them, or entheogens, that are very profound, and I recommend people to look into these things, because awareness is very important. Peace.